always excited to share information on Parkinson's and what's going on in the community, and also valuable resources that are available. And I'm really excited to have Latoya here today to share information on her journey. She and I met 3 years ago at Moving Day, so it's just great to be able to celebrate it on Parkinson's Awareness Month, and to give people an opportunity just to hear from someone who is living with Parkinson's. So our goal today is to be able to have you walk away with more information and knowledge on what the disease is, symptoms, and basically the type of treatment and resources that are available in the community. So with that, I'm going to get started. The foundation's mission is really to work with people, not only locally. I manage the Mid-Atlantic chapter, which includes all the Mid-Atlantic states. So I have a local presence and I'm able to meet so many people, but we're on a national level with regard to doing outreach in the community to make sure that we build awareness of Parkinson's, and to let people know that we not only want to work on this mission as far as making life better for those living with Parkinson's, but we also want you to be a part of it as well. I'm sure many of you have come into contact with people who are either living with Parkinson's, whether it be a parent, a spouse, a family member, a friend. So we want you to, again, to walk away with a comfort level in being able to help them. The foundation focuses on 3 different initiatives, and that's research, care, and support. We work closely with the Michael J. Fox Foundation as well. His focus is on treatments and therapies to those living with Parkinson's, and we focus on all 3, but our particular focus on research is with regard to genetics. So I'll talk a little bit about that, as we go through the presentation. And now what I'd like to share with you is information on just facts. 90,000 cases are generally diagnosed each year. This is up from 60,000. The foundation completed some research that they were looking at over the past couple of years and found out that number significantly increased, and for various reasons. People are going to the doctor sooner and being diagnosed. Access to healthcare makes a difference. And then just the growing knowledge of what Parkinson's is and some of the symptoms that to look for. But there's more work to be done. 1 billion people are living with Parkinson's in the United States. And because of the worldwide research that we're doing, we're focusing on other people that are living outside of the country, and that amounts to about 10 million. We all know that there's an expense that one incurs when it comes to managing Parkinson's symptoms, whether it be an early stage or a latter stage with Parkinson's. There's going to be a cost associated. We have people working on the Hill to pass legislation to help curb some of the costs that's associated with medication. And because we really need funding to further our research, we're looking at additional funding from the federal government so that we can pursue our research and improving not only the quality of life, but also being able to find a cure, because at this time there is none. Parkinson's is not fatal, but it does impact the lifestyle of an individual living with Parkinson's. Go ahead. So what we will cover today is, what is Parkinson's disease? We'll touch a little on the symptoms, what is affected, whether it be motor or non-motor skills. Most people are so familiar with the tremors, but Parkinson's is more than the tremors, and not everyone experiences that particular symptom. And the importance of movement. So we'll talk a little bit about exercise and how it benefits the individual. So what is Parkinson's? We know that it's a neurological disorder, and it's also a degenerative one. So basically what that means is that it's a progressive disorder. What's affected in the brain is the dopamine chemical, the neurotransmitters that cause the interaction, the transmission of the communication in order for movement and the communication process to complete that thought and movement. So because the dopamine is reduced and is not being replenished, it causes people to have symptoms that are related to tremors and others that can impact their lifestyle. Who is diagnosed with Parkinson's? Generally, we often see that men, um, average age of about 60, 62, are being diagnosed. But because we are seeing many more people diagnosed with Parkinson's, we're beginning to see people who are young onset, as well as other ethnicities that are being affected. I recently met with a gentleman who is 38 years old. He was diagnosed about 2 years ago. His profession was EMT, so of course he's very familiar with the medical field, but unaware of what he was experiencing. And it wasn't a tremor. What he was experiencing is a difficulty with his gait. He would walk and it would be difficult for him to kind of lift his legs, and he began to wonder what's going on here. Never associating with it with Parkinson's. When he did go and seek a diagnosis, that's when he realized that he was living with Parkinson's, and of course was thrown a curveball because he was only 34 at the time, and then to be diagnosed with a disorder and have it impact his lifestyle, especially his career, was overwhelming for him. And so because of situations like that, it's so important that as we move further along through this presentation, that people really understand what's available to them to help them manage what they're experiencing, not only from a physical perspective, but a motor perspective. So that's why we really need to build that awareness, not only with people who are 60 and older, and have been diagnosed or have been living with Parkinson's for a while, but again, letting people know who are younger than that what symptoms can occur. As you will hear me speak throughout this entire presentation, and you're also going to hear it from Latoya, lifestyle, lifestyle, lifestyle. We are able to get up in the morning, swing our legs off the bed, get up and start moving. Sometimes that doesn't happen with people who are living with the disease. It will take some time, especially as the stages progress, for maybe them to get moving in the morning. And so these are symptoms that need to be treated. And as I mentioned, there's no cure, but there are ways to help treat these symptoms, as well as physical exercises that they can participate in. Because ultimately, the goal is to maintain a lifestyle that one can have, and still interact with family members and still do the things that they had planned on doing, as opposed to sitting back and saying, you know, my plan for the next 10 years was to travel, was to be able to spend time with my family. We want that to still happen, and be able to let people know that with the support in the community, with the support from their family, that it can be done. So what are some of the signs? As you all know, if I were to ask you and could see all your faces, you would raise your hand and say, okay, I know tremors. We know with Michael J. Fox, if you think of Muhammad Ali, those are a couple of people who you see with tremors, or in Michael J. Fox's case, a symptom called dyskinesia, where it's that involuntary movement. But when we take a look at things people need to consider, and you will see that as I go through some of these early signs, that they're very related to symptoms with regard to aging. Again, this is just an opportunity to get some insight on things to look at. Um, and if you know of anyone or may have experienced any of these symptoms, or you see something in the future, the goal is just to make sure that you seek out medical care so that you can be diagnosed with whatever may be causing that particular symptom. But when we speak with regard to Parkinson's, um, of course, the first one listed is tremors. Another one is difficulty with sleeping. That's something that many people aren't aware of. There are people who have difficulty sleeping and they may experience violent dreams. There's many stories that I've heard where a spouse has had to move out of the bedroom because of the um, violent and aggressive movement that occurs during this particular dream. And so, in order to avoid harm to themselves or the individual, sometimes that has to occur. And this is something that also can be managed. But again, this is a symptom that's also related to sleep apnea. Soft or low voice. If you've met someone who is living with Parkinson's, they may have a soft and low voice. My father-in-law was diagnosed with Parkinson's several years ago, and we could see the change in his voice as his disease progressed. So it was a lost voice. You could barely hear. So you had to strain in order to make sure that you could understand that what he was saying. And again, this is always up for debate because, you know, with some families, it's a matter of you're not speaking loud enough, and then the person who is speaking low will say, no, you can't hear. But again, something to pay attention to. Small handwriting. With some people, they may experience a change in their handwriting where it gets smaller and smaller. A gentleman that I met a couple of years ago, he had noticed that his handwriting was getting smaller over the course of several years, but just attributed to, you know, the job that he was performing. It wasn't until he happened to see that he had a twitch in his couple of fingers that he went to seek medical advice. And then that's when, through an assessment that was done by a neurologist, it was determined that based on the symptoms, the reflex assessments that they do, that he needed to move forward in being treated for Parkinson's. And not everyone is treated with medication, but it's something that doctors will prescribe just to sometimes rule out Parkinson's. Trouble moving and walking can be an issue. As I mentioned earlier about the gentleman who was an EMT, he had difficulty walking. Another symptom that I've seen pretty often, especially with people who have moved through either the second or third stage, is a masked face. And basically, it's an expression and where there's no emotional reaction being shown. That's not to say that they're not engaged in the conversation, but the ability to react as if someone who isn't hasn't been diagnosed with Parkinson's, or maybe in the early stages, could still react with a smile, with expression, with excitement in their eyes. Um, Loss of smell, that's another symptom. And again, we recently went through COVID, so we know that one of the symptoms with COVID is loss of smell. Constipation, this is the one that really throws everyone off. Constipation is a symptom in which many people experience, and the cause could be attributed to so many things. But when considering a diagnosis for Parkinson's, this is one of the things that is taken into consideration. And then finally, dizziness and fainting. The From standing up too quickly, becoming lightheaded, is can be a symptom of one of the for Parkinson's. So as you can see, there's so many symptoms that, again, relate to other diseases. But again, drawing your attention to be aware of these things so that if it is noticed, it's something that you can think about. And finally, so what should you know about these symptoms and that it affects, many body symptoms. I had mentioned earlier that it's not just a physical change in the person's habits. It's also non-motor skills as well, which I'm going to get into. And it varies from person to person. A person may exhibit a tremor, another one may not. They could have issues with gait. So we generally call it a designer disease because it is different from person to person. So here is a mix of different symptoms that a person may experience. Anxiety can reign high when it comes to Parkinson's because whatever symptom they're experiencing, the person realizes that this is something that I'm going to have to manage. And for some people, they can isolate themselves because they don't feel comfortable being out in public for fear that a person may notice a specific symptom, let's say the rigidity, where they may be walking and all of a sudden are unable to do so and have a freezing moment. So therefore, regardless of what symptom that they have, the goal is to make sure that the support is there to help manage and then bring that comfort level so that a person doesn't become isolated and does engage to let people know what they're experiencing. And the next thing that I'd like to talk about, again, I mentioned that the age is generally 60 plus. More often, males are being diagnosed. People always ask about what are the risk factors when it comes to family history. The research, it shows that about 10 to 15% may carry the genetic mutation. And generally, there's two mutations that we take a look at that we consider. It's called LARC1 and LARC2. But again, the gene just puts that person at a higher risk than someone who does not. And the research that we're doing is called PD generation, in which we've been asking people to participate in one of our trials. And in order to do that, we only ask that they do a simple saliva test. The benefits from this particular test is that they will be able to sit down with a counselor and then review the results so that either it will demonstrate that, yes, this gene is one of the mutations that may put your family member at risk, or it is not. So it brings some assurance to the individual. If it's not, it can cause some challenges for someone who does have that mutation, because then it becomes a question of, do I share it with my family? Because some people can become alarmed by that. Environmental factors also play a role. We've heard a lot about the toxins. Sometimes in communities, farming communities, there you can see a higher percentage of people being diagnosed with Parkinson's. I know in the Frederick area, there's a large support group there that goes from Hagerstown to Frederick, Maryland, where people have come together, and many of them have had careers as farmers or have worked in an environment where there may have been some type of exposure. Other risk factors, traumatic brain injury, and then just the aging process as well. There's a lot of work to be done because Parkinson's really wasn't on the map until when Michael J. Fox, started um, his organization and then receiving funding for that. Even though there had been organizations around for a very long time, funding just wasn't there in order to be able to do the research to identify people who are living with Parkinson's. So we've begun that and we've made some progress, but there's a lot more work to be done. And then what's so important with regard to Parkinson's is uh, because it affects the non-motor skills and motor skills, to have a health care team in place can make a huge difference in not only for the individual living with Parkinson's, but the family, so that when that doctor is monitoring them, which we refer to as a movement disorder specialist, the movement disorder specialist is a neurologist who has gone through a fellows program and has become certified to be a movement disorder specialist for any movement disorder. So it's not just Parkinson's, it's MS, it's ALS, and any other neurological disorder. But what makes this different is many of the movement specialists will see many more patients than a neurologist will see who are living with Parkinson's. So they're better adept to helping to manage that the care for that individual. A nurse, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy are really critical for someone who is living with Parkinson's, because the more that they participate in these types of therapies, it will help slow the progression of the disease. Social worker, just to help manage the services that that individual may need, so that the weight doesn't fall on the family. And then, of course, a psychiatrist or psychologist, because of the mental stress, the anxiety in managing, day-to-day activities. Pharmacist plays a huge role. The medication that one may have to take is can be a lot. And so how do you manage that to make sure that there aren't any side effects, that it's not interfering with any other medications or other comorbidities that that person may have? And treatments. I talked about medication. Generally, the most prescribed medication for Parkinson's is carbidopa levodopa, sometimes known as Sinemet. And that basically is a medication for tremors. It specifically helps manage them so that the person isn't experiencing them throughout the day. So they will take the medication, and when it's taken correctly, and it's very difficult because the dosage level can be high, then they will not experience those tremors. As that medication wears off, if the medication isn't taken when it needs to, then the tremors will come back. So it's important that they stay on a regimen. And we refer to that as on and off time. So when the medication is wearing off, it's off time. Many other therapies are available because sometimes people, as it progresses, may need something to get them moving in the morning. So that quick shot, there's a treatment for that until that carbidopa levodopa kicks in. Or if there's something that they need to take for anxiety, or with regard to their gait. So there's medications out there to help them. But again, the most important is exercise. The other surgical treatments would be deep brain stimulation, which requires it's a long process for someone in order to become eligible, but basically it's a probe that's being entered through the skull to connect with a monitor, very much like a pacemaker. And so in order to help manage tremors, and that's basically what DBT is for, a person is able to, along with their doctor, manage that treatment just through electrical charges, which can be adjusted to stop the tremors. And then exercise, as I mentioned, exercise is really the key. I've been to different programs for people with Parkinson's. One is Rock Steady Boxing. that's specifically for people living with Parkinson's because it's programmed so that not only are they working from a motor perspective, but they're also coordinating it with mental activities as well. And then there's one called PD for dance. The whole key is to do what you like to do in order to keep moving. And of course, we know with exercise, for any of us, the importance of it and why it's so important. So, for someone who needs to be active in maintaining their balance and mobility and endurance is so important. Not only that, it can help with other with sleep and mood and things like that. Um, and again, find something that you enjoy doing because that's the only way you're going to do it. People will tell me, I don't like rock steady boxing. I don't like music, so I don't want to do the dance. And I always share with them, just move. If it's a matter of walking, then walk and slowly build up to what you can do and increasing the amount of time. Research has shown that it's recommended that a person exercises at least 2.5 hours per week. The more you do, the better. And also maintaining that regiment, which can be difficult. These are just some suggestions that I offer and that people have shared with me. We have a moving day coming up, which is our Walk for Parkinson's, and these are some of the activities that we're going to have there so that people can try them out. Tai Chi is one. Boxing, we're going to have the Rocksteady boxing demo there, yoga. But again, do what makes you feel good because that's the only way you're going to start moving. And then now I'm going to turn it over to Latoya. As Dexter so eloquently introduced her. I have great admiration for her. As I mentioned earlier, some people will isolate themselves and not be in front to share what their experience is. And it's so important because many times I've done presentations and one of the ambassadors have been with me, and people who have Parkinson's who are sitting in the audience are, you can tell because they're just as tight and their expression is like, I don't want to be here. But by the time they hear from someone who is living what they're living with, they open up, they smile, and they begin to ask questions. And that's, I think, what is so important in that, with what makes a presentation so successful. That person realizes I'm not here by myself. So with that, I'm going to open it up so Latoya can share her story and her journey.
Excuse me. Thank you, Dawn. I have had the privilege to be a part of this wonderful organization with Dawn for 3 years. 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's disease. I was very shocked and surprised because I've known no one in my family that has Parkinson's. Um, you, my first symptom was a tremor in my left hand, and I attributed that to stress. It was right after COVID. We were just opening back up the world, and I was dealing with other things with my family, with their health. And so, you just go through life and you just put your whatever you're going through to the back burner for a moment. And until people started to notice my tremors as well, is when I realized that this is something more than just stress. I went to my regular medical doctor and they did blood work. And when she came back and said that she didn't see anything in my mind, I knew what it was. But then you have to go for more testing with a neurologist. After testing, I was confirmed that I had it. And of course, you don't expect it. You question why, but you also realize that, well, I realized that I can't let that be the reason why I stop. I need to learn about it. I need to understand what is going to come. And a lot of the Parkinson's symptoms that Dawn spoke of are symptoms that come in the future. So that's one of the most daunting feelings, is that you don't know what's coming next. You don't know when it's going to come next. You just know that something's going to happen. but I have been blessed enough to been referred to a wonderful neurologist that is out of George Washington University Hospital, and she has taught me more than I have learned in the last 3 years before with my previous neurologist. I will attest that movement is very important. It is very important to not stop moving and learn about what you can do to help you know, live a life that is full while you have Parkinson's. Parkinson's does not define me, but I do want to make sure that I can advocate for women and people of color because there's not a lot of information that ties what is going on with Parkinson's with our community. But like I said, I have not let Parkinson's define me. One of my favorite quotes is that God does not give his hardest battles to he gives his hardest battles to his toughest warriors. I feel like that's me right now. Like it's my job to help others learn about what they can do to help us, people with Parkinson's, but also help Dawn get the word out because this is growing. I will say that the first walk I did was at the wharf and it was a smaller group, and then last year it was larger. It just excites me to see how this is growing and that we're getting the word out and able to help others understand what living with Parkinson's is like and how they can help and be a part of that community.
And Latoya, can you talk about your exercise regimen?
Yes. So when I initially was diagnosed, I am blessed to work for a company that actually immediately put work into place to help me before we even knew what that help would be. And so initially I was seeing a hand specialist to gain the strength back in my left hand, the hand that I have the tremors in. But now I have also been encouraged to walk. I ride a bike, so I ride my Peloton. I try to ride it every other day for at least 15, 20 minutes. It is important that even though movement is encouraged, my neurologist let me know that you do not need to jump in there and become a marathon runner if that's not what you've done before. It can be a little bit much if you try to overdo it. I am actually looking into Dawn was gracious enough to tell me about rock climbing class. So I want to try to do other things. I do enjoy dancing, even though I really can't. I'm not skilled in it. But anything that you can do to move is wonderful. Now that the weather's breaking, I come home from work, change my clothes, and go for a walk around the trails in my neighborhood because walking, to be honest, is the easiest thing that you can do. We take that for granted. I would say go back, get you a Fitbit, put it on your arm, and just track you because it encourages you to move and walk. And I also I joined the gym so I can do water aerobics as well because it helps with your joints and things as well. So I am open to trying anything that I think is fun. Anything with music would probably be easier for me because then it helps distract you from the true exercise portion of it. But I will say that it makes you take your um your level of exercise seriously because if you do nothing, you're going to allow Parkinson's to come and it'll come faster. The more active you are, it slows down the progression of the symptoms.
And then one other question, can you talk a little bit about the medication or therapies that were suggested for you?
Yes. So initially, as I said, when I was diagnosed, they monitor your gait, they monitor your hand and eye coordination. And one of the things that I was originally diagnosed with is that I lost use of one, not use, but one of my hands was weaker than the other. So initially, I did do hand therapy. Hand therapy. I was my first medication was Promexapil, and they started off as a very low dosage and then increased as we figured out what that cocktail is. I have not, the medicine that Dawn mentioned early on, I have not had to have yet because I am in the young onset stage. They want to try to wait until I get more symptoms and it progresses more before they put me into the different medicines because your body can adjust to it. I have also added Razaline, which is something that, so Pramipexole controls the tremors and Razaline helps hold off the other symptoms. So they kind of is like a blockage to help um, prevent the other symptoms from coming on immediately is the way I understand it. Don't take me as an expert because I'm just regurgitating what my doctor said. But I've been on those two medications for the last 2.5 years. And I am actually my follow-up appointment is on Monday. And they're changing I call it my Parkinson's cocktail, just because some of the medications can cause not really bad side effects, but like some things that they want to hold off on. So they may change it a little bit. But I have been blessed that these medicines are working. I will tell you that what I did not realize is even if if you're on medicine and you have a treatment plan, there are things that can still affect your symptoms, like stress, sleep, not taking care of yourself in other ways. So if your body is going through something and you're sick, it can trigger your tremors even if you're medicated. So it's very important to keep all of those things in mind because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where your body is fighting your medicine.
Thank you, Latoya.
You're welcome.
So we'll finish and then we'll open it up for questions. Just a few more slides. And so, Latoya mentioned about the things that she does. So you can go to the next one, Latoya. And these are resources. These are publications that you can take advantage of. They're at no cost. We provide them to you because we want you to get that education. Okay. We also have an online program, which is called PD Health at Home. It covers all topics related to Parkinson's, symptoms, research. And as Latoya mentioned, mental health is so important. We have a program on every Monday called Mindfulness Mondays that focuses on ways to lower that anxiety, lower that stress, not only for the individual, but their family as well. And for those who can't figure out what to do, how to exercise, we have videos available that you can take advantage of those as well. At any time, they're archived so you can pull them up. Okay. So I hope with these takeaways that you have a better understanding of symptoms and the importance of managing them. And that, again, it varies from one person to one person. And then, as Latoya mentioned, it's a personalized treatment approach so that they are working with the individual and the disease and not solely prescribing medication based on the condition. And Latoya alluded to moving day. We have a couple of moving days. One is coming up in about a couple of weeks. It's DC. We would love for you to participate. It's a great opportunity to come and see what we do. Lots of movement activities will be there. Pharmaceutical companies just talking about their therapies, and we will have the doctors from Georgetown also there to answer any questions. Now, I don't know if you can if you click on Parkinson's Moving Day, Latoya, it should take you to.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, I can see.
Is that where it's supposed to take you to registration?
Oh yeah, it's not showing here, but that's okay.
Oh, okay. Let me.
But yeah, registration can be done online. And again, the other location is Baltimore, which is June 1st. And go ahead. And then finally, we want to thank you for allowing us to share this information with you. And again, the best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. And that's what's so important when it comes to anything, but also managing Parkinson's. So we want to open it up for questions. And there's my contact information if you need to reach out to me.
Okay, that's really, really beautiful, Dawn, Latoya. Thank you very much. Now we will just be reviewing some of the questions our guests have sent via the Q&A box. Dawn has answered some of them, but I will just be reading them. Okay, so Lainey asked a while ago if, all of these are early symptoms, and Dawn has answered that they can be early symptoms, but also occurs throughout the stages depending on the person. Is there anything you would like to add to that, Dawn or Latoya?
I think Latoya gave a really good example
Mm-hmm.
when she said that with her disease stage, that right now they're treating the certain symptoms. And then if there's any change, then they'll start treating some of the other symptoms that were noted. But yes, it does vary from person to person. And then it could be several years before they may experience another symptom. But again, those are the ones that will be monitored throughout that time.
Mm-hmm. Also, Laney has put in chat a while ago that stating that he had a patient who was in his mid 80s who was diagnosed, and he's asking if is this getting more common?
I, I, that's the big question. We feel that it isn't getting more common. It's just that people are being diagnosed more frequently. When you think about it's very similar to Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's has been, or dementia has been around for a while, but many years, maybe we thought it was senility or other factors that was considered to be the disease. Parkinson's is the same way. And it's because not all people experience a tremor. If they have some other symptoms, then the likelihood of it being diagnosed, or someone even knowing what the symptoms are with Parkinson's just may not have been available at that time. So I think what we've seen, or what our calculation is that people are more educated, people are more concerned about their health and seeking care sooner rather than later. One
Mm-hmm.
thing I know that Latoya had also alluded to the fact, what's going on in the African American community. A couple of years ago, the foundation started working specifically on an initiative for people of color, not only Black and African Americans, but the Hispanic community, because the findings had shown that when people are diagnosed with those particular ethnicities, that they're diagnosed later in the stage. So getting the information out there, the education out there is so important. And so that way, that will also be another factor in why people are being diagnosed more.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Um, Christina and Kudirat are asking, yeah, Don, are we gonna be having these presentation slides available to our participants? I could email it to
Yes.
them.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for that. Also, another question from Leonora. Can an out-of-state person like in New York participate in the testing?
Yes, we are looking for anyone throughout the United States to participate in the testing. How you would find out about it is going online. And what I'll do is when I send the presentation deck, I'll also include the links to some of the really important websites, and I will include PDG. But basically, a person goes online to enroll, and then a kit is sent to them. Again, the kit is only going to be sent to someone who has been diagnosed with Parkinson's. The person will receive the kit in the mail, do the saliva swab, mail it back, and then they'll be notified when the results are in.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right now we have 15,000 people that participated, and we really want to grow that number.
Mm-hmm. Okay, another question from Panayota. Can a neurotransmitter help the process?
Uh,
The process. If Panayota, if you could expound on the question, do we need him to expound?
if they're looking for that, because the dopamine chemical in the brain is being depleted, it the the communication in order to effectively coordinate movement and what the brain is say indicating what needs to be done, that's not working effectively because that dopamine level isn't there. It's just like, when you get excited and because you're celebrating whatever occasion, and then when you come down, you know, that euphoria is gone. And so that's basically just not the greatest analogy, but what a person experienced. So you can't go back to that feeling that you once had.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, Are symptoms only in hands or different parts of the body? That's a question from Audrey.
Can you repeat that, please?
Are the symptoms only in hands or different parts of the body?
It, if I'm understanding that correctly, with regard to, let's say, example of a tremor,
Mhm.
a tremor would affect a specific part of the body, and it could be more pronounced. Also, with tremors, when a person is first experiencing those symptoms, it is affected by one side of the body. So again, and I'm not sure if I'm answering that. If I'm not, let me know. And I'll go down another road. But yes, it's going to be pronounced on one side of the body for as an example of a tremor. With regard to, let's say, another symptom, a gait. Again, how that person experiences it will be different. I gave the example of someone who felt like their feet were lead,
Mhm.
and made it difficult to walk, as opposed to someone who may have balance issues, but still, but doesn't have that heaviness in their legs or feet.
I think Dawn,
Mm-hmm.
they were asking if you can get tremors in like maybe your hand, your other than your hands, or can it be in your legs maybe or other parts of
Oh,
your.
okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, it could be.
That's what I think they were meaning.
Okay. Yes, it could be anywhere on your body. Yeah, you could experience it on your hands, your fingers. Some people experience it in their legs.
Mm-hmm. Another question from Lainey. Can you please spell the medications that Latoya is taking? If you could do that,
Sure.
please, Latoya.
Sure.
While I give another question here from hold on. Yeah.
I'm gonna pull it up because
Does
I spell it wrong.
okay.
Is it
Just
Rotari?
So it's one of the is Vaseline, which is RAS. I have it. I'm pulling it up.
yeah. So Grace here is asking, does diet impact
Mhm.
Parkinson's?
Um, I can answer that, or if you want to answer that, Latoya.
I will say that my doctor told me yes, that you basically your diet helps your health. So the healthier you are, the better you will be, and the better you'll be able to be more active and do more things to help ward off the other symptoms. So yes, I believe so.
Mm-hmm. All right. I believe you have a walk-in this coming May, Dawn. Is it
Yeah.
something you'd like to mention again before we end?
Yeah, and I'm gonna let Latoya be the cheerleader.
Okay.
So we have the moving day DC on May 4th at the Constitution Gardens in the Constitution Gardens down at the mall. It starts at 9
Mhm.
a.m. What I will say I love is that there are typically two routes, one for those who want to have a shorter route and one for those who want to be a little bit more adventurous. They're not very difficult, but it's a wonderful event. You get to learn about Parkinson's. You get to learn about a lot of the things that we can do to help with your movement. But they also have other vendors there to teach us about different. I know that I learned last year about they have special pens that you can use to help with your writing. They have um, uh, a device that is you can I think is a neurological device that they can insert to help with your tremors. You get to learn so many different things. So if you've never attended, I would encourage you to go, especially if you know someone or you want to learn more about Parkinson's. I think this event is a wonderful entryway to learn and to be involved.
Yeah. And
And
also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
nope, go ahead.
Yeah, and also involvement, and just involves volunteering. We can always use volunteers to come and help us, especially as Latoya mentioned, we have a couple of routes. So we like to have cheerleaders to cheer people on as they're walking along the route. So if you're interested, please feel free to reach out to me. I did see a question about CEUs. I'm glad that question was asked. Um, the reason why is that we did introduce what are we calling it? Parkinson's Learning Institute, and it gives healthcare professionals an opportunity to go online. Everything is at no cost, but basically it's several modules that one can complete. PD 101, and then there's another one that gets into some treatments. There are programs where people can go through the different modules and get CEUs. So that's something that we realized there was a need in the community. And so we want to make sure that we do provide that education to healthcare professionals. We're also going to be rolling out a hospital program, because for someone who's living with Parkinson's, going into the hospital can prove to be many challenges for them. So we want to make sure that hospital staff is educated as well. So I will include the links, for those education programs as well.
And I
Okay.
also put the spelling in the chat for those who asked about the spelling of the medications.
Okay, thank you. I'll just copy that. You sent it to hosts and panelists. I'll just send that to everyone. Okay. Um, Before we end, so Barbara has told me to share this treat to you guys. This is the not so secret recipe to ease constipation. I think
Oh,
you
yeah.
gave this to her, Dawn. So this might be something people might want to check out. It's in the chat box. Yeah, the not so secret recipe to ease constipation. Anyway, that was a beautiful, beautiful session, I believe, guys. We've answered your questions. So far so good. I'm just checking, making sure we did not miss anything, but looks like we are all good. So, um, after sharing this recipe, I'd also like to invite you guys for our upcoming coffee chat session again on the third Wednesday of the upcoming month. The link is right here at the chat box. If you guys want to attend or register as early as now, it's here. We will be sending the replay of this presentation and the slides of presentation to you guys as well. And yeah, as our coffee chat comes to a close, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dawn and Latoya for sharing your stories, your wisdom and expertise with us today. Your insights have actually been truly, very rich and inspirational. And yeah, thank you once again. Is there anything you'd like to say as a final or parting message? Um, Dawn, Latoya?
I'll let you go first, Latoya, if you.
I would just say that luckily we have access to a wonderful healthcare system. And I think that that's the only reason why I know that I have Parkinson's. And so we typically, how we are as humans, we don't want to go get things checked out. I would encourage everyone, if you're not sure and you just have something going on that you may not be normal for you, go get it checked out. It's the best way for you to continue to take your health seriously and live a full life.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, I want to thank you all for allowing us to share our information and to let people know that we exist so that we can help them in whatever way possible.
Yes.
And we hope to see you on May 4th or June 1st.
At Visiting Angels, we're committed to enriching the lives of elders and their significant others. Our monthly coffee chat sessions aim to make your lives easier and better by providing quality information from our expert panelists. We're here to elevate your quality of life, offer practical wisdom, and ensure you have access to valuable insights. See you again next third Wednesday of the month.